Glad you could make it this morning to worship with us this morning. It's good to see you here. Is there anybody? There we go. Thanks, Bob. How is your week going? Good? Well, it's going good now because you're here in church, right? Worshiping together. We're here together. Well, 24 years ago, it was not going so well for me. I was a traveling auditor, and I got home, and I was looking for some equipment that I had purchased. It was one of the first big things I bought when I was out of college. It was a small, compact laptop computer. Now, I see Dan Baker's here. There's a few of you. I know you're jealous. You wish you had one of these right now, right? It has a trackball on it, and it's loaded with the latest software, Windows 95. Does that date me just a little bit? It was great. It was small. You know, those first laptop computers, you had to kind of carry them around in a suitcase. That was what made them portable. This one was great. It would fit right into the seat back of the airplane when you were traveling. It was perfect size. I could get a little work done while I was traveling. And I got home that night after a long trip, and I reached into my bag, and my bag was empty. Have you ever had that feeling when you reach for something and it's not there? Yeah, Dave's shaking his head, nodding his head. The knowledge that something is not where you think it is, the certainty that what you are reaching for, you're sure it's right there, and then you come up empty-handed. Fortunately, that one is not my sound. You know, have you ever walked out into the parking lot like my brother-in-law did on Black Friday when he was shopping and got ready to step into your car and the parking space was empty? Have you ever experienced that? I have not. Maybe you've gone to pay for something in the store and you've reached into your back pocket for your wallet and pulled it out and there was nothing there. As some of the kids might say, that's an awkward moment. What is it we worry about when we have things that are valuable and we lose them? Well, to replace these items costs money, right? They represent something of value because they cost money. So what do you do when you reach for something and it is not there? Well, if it is valuable, if it has some kind of value to you, you will make a search. In biblical terms, we will begin to seek for that which we have lost. Well, in the next few minutes this morning, I invite you to think with me about what it means to have something of value and hear what the Bible has to say about where we put our resources of time and money. This is an important topic because where we focus our energy says a great deal about who we are and where we are going, but most importantly, it talks about the relationships that we value. Well, fortunately for me, 24 years ago, after a couple of phone calls where I turned up nothing looking for that computer, my phone rang. And a flight attendant who was on that flight doing her final sweep of the cabin noticed a computer sitting in the seat back pocket of the airplane and found that computer. She looked up on her system who was sitting there and located my phone number, gave me a call and said, "Guess what I found?" And a few days later, she kindly mailed it back to me. That was one of the first and nicest letters I wrote to the airline, was about that flight attendant and how well I was treated on that flight. In a matter of a few short days, my search for my item that I had lost was over, and I was relieved not to have to spend the money to replace what I had lost. Have you ever had the opportunity to help somebody find what they are missing? Have you ever had a chance to do that? Around the house, maybe? Maybe out in the parking lot? I think that flight attendant really enjoyed her job. She didn't have to look up my phone number and mail that back to me. She didn't, even if she had decided not to keep it, she certainly didn't have to track me down and get it back to me. But being able to help me be restored to the thing that I had lost was a very important thing for her, and I believe it gave her a great deal of satisfaction in her job. You know, there's been a financial crisis affecting the country that we live in for over a decade. There has been a lot of suffering, but in the midst of this crisis, I've been encouraged by how people have pulled together, worked together to help each other out, to serve, to give of resources, time, and skills. And I know many of you have been blessed with the opportunity to help make a positive difference in people's lives. You have experienced that good feeling of giving through your contributions of time, your resources, and I can tell you from personal experience, giving of time and money does make a difference in people's lives. And it has the potential to continue to make great impacts. You know, the fact is this, maybe I shouldn't say this too loudly. Can I say this in church? The fact is, money is what makes the world go around, isn't it? You're skeptical. Well, try buying a loaf of bread without money. Try getting from one place to the other without money. Try any type of food, transportation, or housing, and you're not going to succeed if you do not have money. It's a reality. If you want to get anything done in this life, it does require time. And since you're here in church this morning, I believe you also think that it requires prayer and discernment. But money is important. In fact, money is important to God. Did you know that? Why talk about money? Is the topic important to God? That's the first question we're going to ask. Well, let's think about this. 2/3 of Jesus' parables deal with money, material possessions, or our attitude toward them. More than 2,000 biblical references deal with money. Contrast that with only about 500 biblical passages that deal with prayer, and less than 500 dealing with faith. Until I started researching this topic years ago, that was not something I knew. That was a bit of a surprise to me. Maybe it is to you. Did you know there's so much money in the Bible? Why is this? The Bible talks about money so much because in the first century, just like in the 21st century, money is a measuring tool to assign value. Another topic that often comes up when you're talking about financial resources is who gets what, where, and when. Politics is the definition of that we hear a lot about today. So the first thing I want to talk about is in Matthew chapter 7. It says, "Judge not that you be not judged." This subject is not one for me or you to look at someone else or to judge someone else with. And so as we visit this morning, using the passage in Matthew as our guide, we're going to embark on a little chat this morning, and let's have a conversation about money. Is that okay? Can we have a conversation about money today? A conversation that doesn't involve politics, but a conversation that is personal for each of us. the relationship we have with money on a personal level. So let's start by looking at a couple of Bible verses. The first is in 1 Timothy, and it talks about the contrasting themes of money and value. The first is in 1 Timothy 6, and it says this: "For the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil." That doesn't sound very good. All kinds of evil? Is this passage telling us that money is evil? No. But it is saying that if that's where all of our focus is, if we're showing that it's the most important thing, it does not lead us to the direction we would want to head, right? Well, what's another passage we can look at? The scripture for this morning in Matthew chapter 6 says, "Seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added to you." So there are two questions we want to ask ourselves this morning. The first is this: what is my passion, and what motivates and drives my life? Those are important questions to ask as we explore this topic. The answer to these questions reflect on two contrasting forces that shape our life and character. What are these contrasting forces? They are the capacity to give, as opposed to the need to keep, to take, or to control. I don't know about you, but I've spent a large portion of my professional career counting money. Why is money something we spend so much time looking at, talking about? In our society today, we don't usually end up touching a whole lot of money, but we talk about it a bit, right? Anybody ever served on a church board, a school board, a committee about this, a committee about that? What inevitably is part of the conversation? The finances. Why is money such a factor in our society? Well, in our society, money is equated with success, power, recognition, position, accomplishment, and importance, and lack of money is often seen as failure and weakness. I have spent a few months of the last couple of years traveling over the Pacific Ocean, and out across the Pacific Ocean. If you've ever flown across the Pacific Ocean, there are vast spaces of nothingness and small spaces of land. These two guys apparently got lost. Either their ship or their plane left them on an island, and this one guy was a little bit worried. He said, "I'm afraid nobody will ever find me." And the other guy said, "Oh, don't worry, I give a lot of money to the church each year. The pastor will find me." Yes, even in our church settings, we need to ask ourselves, where is our passion? What drives our life? How is it that we make decisions? And in Matthew it says, "No one can serve two masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or else he will be loyal to one and despise the other." The 12th chapter of Mark says, "You should love the Lord your God with all your heart, your soul, and your mind, and with all your strength." Well, let's start at the beginning. Our starting point for dealing with money should be from the beginning. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The first thing that the Bible says is that He is the creator. This must form our foundation for any conversation about what comes next, about who we are, and about how we should relate to Him. The fact that God is the creator of the heaven and earth means that everything belongs to Him. How much? Everything. Even that laptop that I lost, or that computer now that is in my pocket that I can place calls with, that is more powerful than the computer that launched the Apollo mission that landed Neil Armstrong on the moon 50 years ago today? Does God care about my phone? It's his, right? Everything belongs to him. Psalm chapter 24 says, "The earth is the Lord's and all its fullness, the world and those who dwell therein. For he has founded it on the seas and established it on the waters." We can't truly accept God as the owner, though, unless we learn to trust him. Only when we experience God's love and grace can we deal correctly with material possessions, the things that we hold dear. You see, any conversation we have about money, any conversation we have about possessions, if we don't have a personal walk with God, we will seek security on our own. We will search for security in money or what money can buy. You see, regardless of how much we have on this earth, security will always be an illusion and will always elude us. That's because money is just a tool. It's temporary, and what it buys will waste away. Just look at those cell phones we have in our pockets, right? You know, just about the time I think I've got the latest and greatest, what do they come out with? The next best, right? The next best. Even the software. I might even still have the phone in my hands, but they can't even leave me alone to help me find an app for a couple of weeks, right? What happens when you get that little red square? Am I the only one that's that OCD? When I get that little red thing, I just have to click on it so that it updates my phone, and then I can't get anything to work again. You know, maybe Solomon knew something about our problems, maybe my problems. He said, "He who loves silver will not be satisfied with silver, nor he who loves abundance with increase. This also is vanity." The fact is, money's true value can only be seen in the context of God's kingdom. Money is only a tool or a symbol. I was talking with someone in another conference I was in fairly recently, and the conversation of pastor's pay came up. This person worked as a pastor. And then the conversation about how the pay works for this and works for that. And this person said, you know, nobody gets more upset than when you mess with their paycheck. But if we stop for a minute and think about who owns the resources, and if we realize that even what comes in our paycheck is only a tool or a symbol of something, we can realize that it's only valuable if it's used in the context that God intended. Because the fact is, 30 pieces of silver bought Judas' betrayal of his master. But how many great things have been accomplished around the world using the same tool for the right purpose? But what about the story of the widow and 2 mites? We tell that story often when we think about the sacrifice that she made for that which was important. So what is the difference? What is the difference between using the tool for good or using the tool for something that is not good? I think the issue is, what is our attitude towards the tool? Do we believe that money is ours to do with as we please, or do we acknowledge that God entrusts us with money? The simple fact is, if we believe we own the money we have, then that money does begin to own us. That's why Jesus said in Matthew chapter 6, you cannot choose both God and money. And it's also why it's important to think and reflect on how our money management does reflect our walk with God. How we get it, what we do with it, speaks of how we make God a priority in our lives. Bill and Karen and I are going to do a song where we talk a little bit about God's priority for us.
Just the time I feel that I've been caught in the mire of sand. Just the time I feel my mind's been bought by worldly web. That's when the breeze begins to blow. I know the Spirit's call, and all my worldly wanderings just melt into His love. Oh, I want to know You more. Deep within my heart, I want to know You. Oh, I want to know You, to feel Your heart and know Your mind. Looking in Your eyes stirs up within me cries that say, I want to know You. Oh, I want to know You more.
Just when the daily deeds ordinarily lose life a song, my heart begins to bleed. Sensitivity to Him is gone. I've run the race, but set my pace and face a shattered soul. Now the gentle arms of Jesus warm my hunger to behold. Oh, I want to know You more. Deep within my soul, I want to know You. Oh, I want to know You, to feel Your heart and know Your mind. Looking in Your eyes stirs up within me cries to say, I want to know You. Oh, I want to know You, and I would give my final breath to know You in Your death and resurrection. Oh, I want to know You more. Oh, I want to know You, to know You more. Oh, I want to know You more.
The fact is, true worship is based on an intimate relationship with Jesus, knowing Him as our personal Savior and Lord. This is why the gospel is the foundation of any conversation we have about money, about resources, about the things that are important. Without the experience of the gospel, giving, the topic of stewardship, just becomes a subject and a form of spiritual slavery. Just another way of perpetuating a performance-based religion and life. The fact is, you cannot have Jesus dwelling in you and remain the same. In Ezekiel, God promises us a new heart and a new spirit. It is God who causes us to walk in His Spirit. In Philippians, Paul says, it is God who will work in us both to will and to do. If you know Christ, giving is fun. Are you awake? Did you hear me say that? If you know Christ, giving is a joyful experience when we are thinking about our relationship with God. It is in giving and trusting our resources to Him that we acknowledge Him as our Creator and the owner of everything. Have you ever heard the term sacrificial giving? Yes. When I was young, I used to hear about the sacrificial offering, and I used to go, oh, that doesn't sound good. I mean, think about it. For these guys, the chicken said, we should donate some ham and eggs to the Feed the Hungry campaign. And what did the pig say? He said, well, for you, that would be a contribution, but for me, that would be a total sacrifice. Sacrifice sometimes gives us kind of a, well, that sounds like something I don't really want to do. But if you put it in the context of God, sacrifice meant Jesus dying so that the guilty could live. For us, a sacrifice means surrendering, dying to Christ, and a rebirth in a life of praise and worship. It means giving up that which we do not need in honor of the God that we serve. The fact is, for Christians, there can be no pain in giving, or in any other term traditionally termed sacrifice, if we know who we are serving and why we are giving to Him. I thank you for my church family, for your friendship, for your gifts to the church community. And today, as we sing our closing song, let's thank God for what He has done for each of us.